Let me tell you something most women won't admit out loud. When a woman takes a good man for granted and walks away, she doesn't just lose a relationship. She loses the measuring stick for every man who comes after. You were probably too available, maybe too consistent. She got comfortable. And comfortable doesn't feel exciting. So she convinced herself there was something better out there. That's the trap. Because here's what happens next. She moves on, dates around, and then it hits her. That new guy who seemed so exciting. He doesn't make her feel safe like you did. That confident guy who doesn't chase. He's just emotionally unavailable. Every single one has something wrong with them that you didn't have. And suddenly, you're the ghost in every relationship she has. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. And real is irreplaceable. This isn't about some fantasy where she begs you to come back. This is about understanding why women who let high-quality men go spend years searching for something they already had. I'm going to break down the psychology, show you the exact pattern, and prove to you that you're not the one who lost here. She is. Now, before we go deeper, let me be clear about something. This isn't some revenge fantasy where you sit around waiting for her to crawl back. And this definitely isn't about you trying to manipulate her into feeling guilty. That's not what this is. This is about understanding a psychological pattern that happens whether you're involved or not. Whether you want her back or not. Whether she admits it or not. The comparison happens automatically. It's how the human brain works when you lose something you took for granted. I'm walking you through this because you deserve to know your value. You deserve to understand that when a woman moves on from a good man, she doesn't just move forward. She moves into a cycle where every new experience reminds her of what she left behind. So if you're here looking for closure, or validation, or just trying to make sense of why she didn't see what she had, this is for you. Because understanding this pattern isn't about getting her back. It's about knowing you left an impact she'll carry forever. So why is this comparison trap inevitable? It comes down to two psychological mechanisms that most people don't realize are running in the background. First, there's something called hedonic adaptation. When you have something consistently, your brain stops registering how good it is. It becomes baseline. That's what happened with you. You were consistent, dependable, emotionally available, and her brain adapted to that. It stopped feeling special because it was always there. Second, there's the availability bias. Your brain makes decisions based on what's most recent and most vivid in your experience. When she was with you, what was most recent? Your minor flaws, the times you weren't perfect, those small irritations, what wasn't available to compare against. The alternative, other men. Different experiences, but the moment she leaves, the availability flips. Now those minor flaws fade into memory, and what becomes vivid is every disappointing interaction with new men. Every moment that doesn't measure up. Her brain is now comparing real experiences with new guys against idealized memories of you. And here's the part that makes it brutal for her. She can't turn this off. The comparison happens automatically, unconsciously, every single time she's with someone new. A conversation feels shallow. A moment feels cold. An interaction feels off. And in the back of her mind, there's this quiet whisper, he wouldn't have done it that way. This is the psychological trap she walked into when she took you for granted and left. She thought she was choosing freedom. What she actually chose was a lifetime of comparison where the measuring stick is you. Once that comparison starts, it happens across 4 specific dimensions, 4 areas where every new guy she dates is going to fall short. And I'm going to walk you through each one so you can see exactly how this plays out in her mind. The emotional safety gap, the mental stimulation difference, the authenticity versus performance contrast, and how he makes her feel about herself compared to how you did. Each dimension builds on the last. And by the time you understand all 4, You'll see why this isn't just about her missing you. It's about her realizing she had something irreplaceable and didn't know it until it was gone. Let's start with emotional safety. This one's subtle, which is exactly why she doesn't see it coming. When she was with you, she had complete emotional safety. She could be herself without filtering. She could have a bad day without being judged. She could be vulnerable without worrying that you'd use it against her or lose respect for her. That safety was invisible to her because it was constant. She never had to think about it. Now she's with someone new. And at first, everything seems fine. He's exciting, attentive, maybe more confident than you were. But then the small moments start adding up. She mentions something she's insecure about, and he makes a joke, just a small one. He probably didn't mean anything by it. But she feels it, that little tightening in her chest. The thought, I can't be that open with him. Or she's having a rough day, and instead of just sitting with her in it, he tries to fix it immediately. Gives advice. Tells her what she should do. And what she realizes in that moment is that with you, she didn't have to explain herself. You understood. You gave her space to just be upset without needing to solve it instantly. Or maybe he gets defensive when she brings up something that bothered her. His tone shifts. His body language changes. And she realizes she's walking on eggshells. She has to manage his emotions while processing her own. With you, she could bring things up and trust that you'd actually listen without making it about your ego. These aren't relationship-ending moments. That's the trap. They're small enough that she tells herself she's overreacting. She's being too sensitive. This is normal. Everyone has these moments. But here's what's happening underneath. She's comparing. Every single one of these small moments is being measured against the emotional safety you provided. And the more it adds up, the louder that comparison gets. She doesn't feel like she can fully exhale with him. There's always this low-level tension, this monitoring of how he might react. And that's when the thought creeps in. I never had to do this with him. I could just be myself. That's the first dimension where new guys fall short. Not because they're necessarily bad men, but because they don't provide the specific kind of emotional safety you did. And once she notices it, she can't unnotice it. But emotional safety is just the foundation. What really hits her is when she realizes the mental stimulation isn't there. With you, conversations had depth. You challenged her thinking. You remembered details from conversations weeks ago and brought them back up. You asked questions that made her actually think instead of just responding on autopilot. There was this back and forth where both of you were building on each other's ideas. Now she's with this new guy, and the conversations feel flat. He talks about himself a lot. Or worse, he agrees with everything she says. No pushback. No challenge. No depth. Just surface level, yeah, totally, responses that make her feel like she's talking to a wall. Or maybe he does challenge her, but in the wrong way. He's combative instead of curious. He's trying to prove he's smart instead of actually engaging with what she's saying. It becomes exhausting because every conversation feels like a debate he needs to win, rather than a connection he wants to build. And here's what makes this comparison brutal. She starts having thoughts in her head that she wants to share with someone. Ideas. Observations. Random connections between things. And her first instinct is to share them with him. But then she catches herself because she already knows how he'll respond. Either he won't really get it, or he'll turn it into a lecture, or he'll just not care enough to engage deeply. That's when you become a ghost in her mind. She has a thought, and before she can stop herself, she thinks, I wish I could tell him about this. He would have gotten it. Not the new guy. You owe the person who's no longer there. She might even reach for her phone to text you before she remembers. You're not part of her life anymore. That muscle memory of wanting to share things with you doesn't go away just because the relationship did. Inside jokes don't land with this new guy. References go over his head. The shorthand you two developed over time doesn't exist here. She has to explain everything. And in explaining it, the moment loses its magic. This is where the exhaustion sets in. Mental connection isn't just nice to have, it's oxygen. And she's starting to realize she's suffocating. Not because this new guy is stupid, but because he doesn't stimulate her mind the way you did. He doesn't make her think. He doesn't remember. He doesn't build on her ideas. He doesn't create that spark where conversation flows effortlessly. And just like that, Dimension 2 is where you become irreplaceable. Because mental chemistry can't be forced. Either it's there, or it isn't. And what she's discovering is that what she had with you was rare. This is where it gets interesting, because the next comparison isn't about what he lacks. It's about what he does too much of. With this new guy, she notices something strange. She's performing. She's managing her image. She's conscious of how she comes across. It's subtle at first. She catches herself editing what she says before she says it. Adjusting her energy to match his, presenting a version of herself that she thinks he wants to see. And the exhausting part. It's working. He likes this version of her. He's attracted to it. He gives her attention. But underneath, she can feel it. This isn't actually her. This is a performance. And performances are exhausting. Here's where the comparison with you becomes painful. With you, she could just exist. She didn't have to perform. She could be tired and weird and unfiltered and know that you'd still be there. She could have messy hair and no makeup and be in a terrible mood, and it didn't change anything. You saw her, not the performance. But with this new guy, she can't let the mask slip. Because what if he doesn't like what's underneath? What if the real her, the unfiltered her, isn't what he signed up for? So she keeps performing, and every day, the gap between who she is and who she's pretending to be gets wider. She starts feeling lonely even when she's with him. That's the paradox. She can be sitting right next to him, talking, laughing even, and feel completely alone, because he's connecting with the performance, not with her. And she knows it. There are moments when she almost tells him, almost drops the act, almost says, this is what I'm actually thinking, or this is how I actually feel. But then she stops herself, because the stakes feel too high. If he rejects the real her, that's worse than performing forever. And that's when she realizes something that cuts deep. You were the only person she didn't have to perform for. The only one who made her feel like she could exhale and just be herself without consequence. That level of comfort, that depth of acceptance. She took it for granted. She thought it was normal. That she'd find it everywhere. But she's not finding it. And the more exhausting this performance becomes, the more she thinks about you. Not in some dramatic, obsessive way. Just quiet moments where she remembers what it felt like to not have to try so hard. To be loved for who she actually was, not who she pretended to be. This dimension is brutal because there's no villain here. The new guy isn't doing anything wrong. She's choosing to perform, but the fact that she feels like she has to, that's the comparison. With you, she never had to choose. Authenticity was just the baseline. But here's what seals the comparison. It's not just about safety, or mental stimulation, or authenticity. It's about how he makes her feel about herself. With you, she felt seen. You noticed things. The way she fidgeted when nervous. How she liked her coffee. Topics that lit her up versus ones that drained her. You paid attention to the details that made her who she was. More than that, you respected her autonomy. You didn't try to control her decisions or make her feel guilty for having boundaries. You gave her space to be her own person while still being present. That balance made her feel valued. But with this new guy, something's off. Maybe he's too possessive. Gets weird when she spends time with friends. Checks up constantly. Needs to know where she is. What she feels isn't love. It's suffocation. Or maybe it's the opposite. He doesn't ask about her day. Doesn't notice when something's bothering her. Treats her like she's just there, not someone worth paying attention to. What she feels isn't freedom. It's invisibility. Either way, there's a mismatch. He's either holding too tight or not holding at all. Neither feels like the respect you gave her. Neither makes her feel seen the way you saw her. Then there are the small moments that add up. He interrupts her. Doesn't remember things she told him last week. Makes decisions without asking what she wants. Not deal breakers individually, but together they paint a picture. He doesn't really get her. You did. You remembered the little things. Asked for her input. Made her feel like her thoughts and feelings mattered. She didn't realize how rare that was until she stopped getting it. This is the fourth dimension. And it's devastating because it's about value. Not her value to him, but how he makes her feel about her own value. With you, she felt important. Worthy of attention. Worthy of respect. Worthy of being known. With him, she's starting to feel like she could be anyone. Like he's not really interested in her, specifically. Just the idea of having someone. That realization that she's replaceable to him while you made her feel irreplaceable, that's the comparison that hurts most. Because you saw her. The real her. The her that exists underneath everything. And you valued that person. She didn't appreciate it at the time. But now she knows what the alternative looks like. And the alternative is painful. All four dimensions trace back to one central truth. You were present. You paid attention. You cared about who she actually was, not just what she could do for you. That level of genuine attention and care, she's learning it's not something you find everywhere. That's when the regret really starts to hit. Not just I miss him, but I had someone who really saw me, and I let him go. And that's when the real regret hits. Not I miss him, but I made a mistake I can't undo. Here's the controversial part. She's going to come back. Not might. Will. If you were truly high quality, she will reach out. When, not if. Breadcrumb text. Late night message. Accidental run-ins. Or direct. I think I made a mistake. But here's the truth. You shouldn't want her back. She's only coming back because she couldn't find better. Not because she values what you offered. You're her last resort after everyone else disappointed her. The woman who comes back isn't the woman who can keep you. She didn't see your value then. People who take things for granted once will do it again. When things get comfortable, hedonic adaptation starts over. You're the ghost because she lost you. But if she gets you back, you stop being a ghost. You become constant. Her brain filters you out again. That's the cycle. What does this mean? You already won. Not because she'll come back. Because you're the standard. Every man gets measured against you. You live in her head rent-free. She took you for granted. Thought she'd find better. Now she's discovering better doesn't exist because you were real. Real is irreplaceable. You don't need her to validate your worth. Your worth was always there. Now she sees it, and she'll carry that forever. That's your power. Not that she wants you back, but that she can't escape what she lost. You're unforgettable. That's the most powerful position there is. So here's what I want to know. Have you experienced this? Have you seen her start comparing new guys to you? Have you noticed the breadcrumb texts? The late-night messages? The "I've been thinking about you" moments? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And honestly, this community right here, these conversations we're having, they matter. Because this isn't just about one woman who took you for granted. This is about understanding your value in a world that often doesn't recognize it until it's gone. That's what we're building here. A community of men who understand they don't need external validation to know their worth. Men who recognize that being taken for granted says more about someone's ability to appreciate than it says about your value. Men who know that real, authentic connection is rare, and when you offer it, you're offering something irreplaceable. So whether she comes back or not, whether she realizes what she lost or not, that doesn't change the central truth. You were real. You showed up. You cared. You made someone feel seen and valued in ways they'll spend years trying to find again. And if you can walk away from this video knowing that, understanding that your worth isn't determined by whether someone chose to see it, then you're exactly where you need to be. You're not the one who lost here. You're the standard they'll measure everyone else against. You're the ghost that haunts every relationship they have. You're unforgettable. And that's the most powerful thing you can be.